Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Fabulites. This is Angela, and I have got questions for you. What opens with Nola being sad about being cut off, and what closes with a little bit of a conversation, explanation, exploration of Miss Nakalaka, not a lot of, got a lot of moss, and her being cut off from herself due to abuse. If you guess my niggas and my bitches, all words matter, she's gotta have it, Netflix season 1 episode 5, you are correct. Thank you so much for clicking on the video and sticking around to see how we get from opening to closing. I am Angela and the channel is Be Fabulous You. Welcome back, baby, welcome. Okay, so let's go. We got a bit of Raspberry Beret. Is this Prince again, or do they open every episode with with Raspberry Beret, and I just didn't notice it? Is this the standard opening and I'm just now starting to catch on 5 episodes in? Is this 5 episodes in? Some of us are slower than others. Okay, if that's the case, I don't know what's going on. Okay, so she said that she was sad about Opal cutting her off. This is Miss Nola Darling, but she's working on the Dystopian show, and it's a combination between the diaspora and dystopian, right? I don't know, but anyway, she's working on pieces for the show. She ended her man cleanse, so she's back to dealing with men. Miss Nola Darling is. She's learning to trust, and including herself. She's learning to trust people, including herself, especially her intuition, and not just her impulses. Okay, that's good. Keep growing, girl. Keep growing. So we see Nola at the school with Miss Rock a Lot of Moss. Does she rock a lot of moss? What does this mean? Rock a lot of moss. Rocks a lot of moss. Moss is like green, and moss grows where there's not a lot of movement. So does she rock a lot of moss because she not moving? I don't know, but I bet you it means something. If somebody do the analysis, break it down. Okay, so she with Miss Rock a Lot of Moss. And the students, and they arting, and they doing a project where they're doing album covers or artwork for albums, music, and a couple of the kids are playing the dozens. And then Nola comes out and says that playing the dozens comes from enslaved Africans being sold in a block of 12. That is the disabled enslaved Africans who have maybe been tortured and mutilated because, you know, due to the types of the situations where we were in, where people were torturing us and mutilating us. And, you know, so they just sell a group of us in the dozens. And that's where playing the dozens come from. This is the first time I've heard this. Are you familiar with this concept? Okay, maimed, disfigured by the enslaved monsters. Okay, enslaver monsters. So Nola talks about this, and then after a couple of students are joking, you know, about each other's mothers, she explains to them what the dozens is. And then in the context of understanding Miss Rockalata Moss's uses of the word provocative in describing a student's work, because Rockalata Moss is like, oh, it's provocative, and then the boy is like, well, what does that provocative mean? And one boy is like, it's like your mama and her titties or something, and then the other one is like, well, your mama, and you know, they joking, and Nola like, well, y'all are playing the dozens and playing the dozens. Okay, so that's what happened. So then Miss Rockalata Moss is trying to set up a meeting with Nola, and Nola is distracted. I'm thinking she may not have that meeting locked in quite, because she's getting a text from someone trying to meet up with her and live inside of her. So we see Nola upside down crying. It's a shot of her face. She upside down, she crying. The tears are going up this way, so we know she upside down. And she cries out, Mars! But it's Overstreet with his hi, Miss Rocks. He has his face in the place. And he misses the mistake because he don't know Mars from Jupiter from Pluto. He don't know Mars as a person. And he like, yeah, my tongue game is interstellar, so I guess you could yell Mars. He don't get it. And then Nola is talking about, you know, really needing to sell some work. And he like, oh, I'll buy some. She like, you know, I'm not asking you. I'm not asking for a handout. You know, I don't want a pity buy from Overstreet, but we find out that Nola's behind who is behind on her rent, has been buying art supplies for her students. Which at first I was kind of like a little upset about, like Nola. But when I saw it later, I mean, it might have been this next scene or later on, it's like I remember when I worked with young people, and it's kind of like, even though you don't feel like you have a lot, you feel like they need so much and you just want to give. And so I know that sometimes I made some bad choices in terms of my resources. So I could kind of relate, like when, especially when I saw the actors playing the little kids and their faces, and I was kind of like, you know, it's just a jacked up situation. So she'd been buying art supplies for her students. The school is called Harriet Tubman Elementary School. Yay, Harry! Say that. Say Harriet Tubman. Say our name. Say her name. And it's underfunded by the Department of Education, and art is not a priority. And she's describing the album cover art project to Jamie Overstreet, and you know, one of the kids, and you know how talented she is, but she can tell from her artwork that she's dealing with some grown people stuff. Wow, I learned about shotguns in a show I did. Nola gives Overstreet a shotgun. Oh, a shotgun. I was doing this one woman show where I did excerpts from this one woman show, and she was talking about giving shotgun. You know, I would do shotguns or something. I can't even remember now the language, but I was kind of like, what is a shotgun? But Nola was giving Overstreet a shotgun. She like inhaled the weed, and then she blew the weed into his mouth. The smoke, that's a shotgun, right? So anyway, I was like, oh my gosh, a shotgun. And then we find out that Overstreet grew up in Brownsville. You know, he was not wealthy growing up. He grew up in, you know, in the projects of Brownsville. And his son Virgil goes to one of the best prep schools in the country. And Virgil's teachers do not have to buy art supplies. And Jamie, you know, feels like he can identify with Nola's students, you know, because he out here. Oh, shoot. Let me keep this kind of organized in a way. Okay, because he out here just, you know, he was out here just trying to make it like these kids are out here trying to make it. Okay, so then we're, Brooklyn Heights is where they lived. In the last one, at some point, I was like, I know there's this community where I've been to where you can sit and you can look over at Manhattan, but it wasn't Park Slope, Brooklyn Heights. He lived in Brooklyn Heights. When I was there, that was a very well-to-do neighborhood. And we see a young, well, who I thought was a young white girl watching a video of 5 kids. There's 4 of them in blackface, and one of the children is in whiteface, and they're wearing nigga tees, and it's N-I-G-G-A tees, and it's different. It's a produced video, like it's different shots. I think they have different colored t-shirts. It's kind of, you know, a lot going on. All of the children are basically the same skin tone. Like, if you looked at their skin and not the painting on their face, they all look the same color to me. And then I realized it's not a girl. This is a grown woman. And then we cut back to Overstreet bragging about his son, Virgil, and how he's a natural leader and all the kids look up to him. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's probably his child in the video. And then we see Overstreet getting a text from the girl who I realized was a woman, who I was thinking was his assistant, but I think it's his wife. And then I'm like, is she white? Is she racially ambiguous? And then one of the texts says, we have a problem with Virgil. So I'm like, we is probably his wife. Heights Prep, we have a problem with Virgil at Heights Prep. Where are you? Urgent. Get your trifling ass home. And then when I saw trifling behind, I'm like, oh, this probably, do white people say trifling behind? That seemed like, I don't know. But then I was like, oh, she black. And then he rushes up out of Nola's place, and then Nola looks at her phone and she's like, oh shit, I gotta go too. And then we see Mecca in a hallway, and it's kind of like an office complex, apartment building, hotel type hookup. And she knocks on the door. Then a bouncer type black guy comes out, and he's like, you know, hey, who you want? May I help you? You know, what's your name? And Mecca is like, I'm Mecca. I have an appointment with Lady May. Then we come in, or we see Lady May, who and I'm kind of like, who is buying behind from Lady May, because her behind looks a hot mess. Is that it? It might be a case of, you know how they say, like, the makeup, I'm not really a makeup artist, but, you know, you know, somebody might look at me and be like, oh, you sell skincare and color cosmetics? But if you see me done, you'd be like, oh, you sell skincare and color cosmetics. Or when I'm like in that groove, I'm like in that groove. But you know the expression, the cobbler's children have no shoes. Or like sometimes the best hairdresser, their hair doesn't look good. So maybe it's like a case of, you know, she experiments on her butt, Lady May, so that she know what not to do on your butt. But I'm like, I'm not buying ass from her. I mean, literal, no, she couldn't sell me. But anyway, she got way too much junk in the trunk. It's okay. So it's a bathroom. I see a shot of the bathroom. So it's a hotel room type situation that they're in. And Lady May has very little bedside matter. She like, you got the money, lay down, take off your pants, you know. She has some hydrocodone though, so she tell her is hydrocodone. Take this, drink this. Good thing there's a cross over the bed. There was a cross over the bed, so I'm like, well, good thing there's a cross over the bed. I guess she gonna be safe. And then Shamika is cringing. The woman take a cotton swab and rub alcohol on her butt, and Shamika's like, oh, it's cold. And the Lady May is like, that's the alcohol. So it's kind of like, I'm like, oh my gosh, how is she gonna make it through what's to come? Because she like me. I'm like, oh my God, you're looking at me too hard. That hurts. Stop. But she's, you know, she's cringes at the cotton swab, and then she is screaming when the woman is injecting her with the shots. And I am like, oh my gosh, no, girl, no. It's like, it's awful. It's terrible. So then we see Cheryl and Jamie, and she's like, this is your hood rat genes coming out, and my son Virgil. So the woman who I thought was a girl, a white woman, is a very, very light-skinned black woman who's his wife. Because when you look at her in the face, I'm like, I think she's light-skinned. She's, yeah. And and then he says something like, well, he's light-skinned, like light-skinned it like you. So, okay. Jamie Overstreet says that to her. And I'm just not buying the writing of her character. It seems like somebody poor trying to write their imaginary sense of someone who's rich. Like they should have done more research in writing the character out, to me. But they're like in the park arguing, and our son knows you are halfway out the door. And then he like, you got me sleeping in the basement. And she's like, cause you're sleeping with other women. Our son is putting on a minstrel show. And then, you know, at school, we find out that it was assignment to create a viral video. And the Overstreets are the only parents complaining about the video. And the school administration is like, well, it's good job. And he's just not bothered until finally he says that he'll take the video off the school's YouTube page when Mama Overstreet threatens to have a friend of hers from law school who writes for the New York Times do an article. Then he's ready to take it down. Before then, he thought it was a good job, or it's okay. The school administration, as they break up, he's like, you know, hey, as their meeting is breaking up, he like, my dad marched with Martin Luther King in Selma, hashtag Black Lives Matter, which I thought was a really interesting moment, because earlier on in like one of the first episodes, Nola came out and was like, Black Lives Matter, which, you know, some people, I heard in somebody's review, they just thought it was like really out of place and strange. And it was out of place and strange, but it fit because it's like the way young people are. They be kind of out of place and strange to me sometimes. So, you know, she's saying, you know, as a black woman, my black life matters, you know, all of this is, you know, but hearing this white man say it, it really seemed very strange, and it kind of looped back to her saying, and it almost made what she was saying, it added more legitimacy to what she was saying to me. I thought it was an interesting little loop back around. Okay, so then we see Nola arriving, a smile on her face at her meeting with Nakalaka Moss. That's the wrong name. And Nola is is a day late or early, but she ain't there the right time for the meeting. And Rockalotta Moss has a history of being sexually exploited. She explains to us as a youth by men, being in the foster care system. Her mother, it seems like, had an issue and was pimping her out, selling her, you know. So Rockalotta Moss is not here for using art to stir up wounds that the students has, because she like the students have, because she's like, these students have issues, I have issues, I'm not really here for what's going on. And I love at one point she switches out of the third person and she says, you know, Rockalotta Moss, I, and then, you know, so it's sort of like she does have on some level of consciousness of her third person talkation. And I think that it's when she sort of associated back with herself and, you know, that she said I as opposed to Rockalotta Moss. Okay, so meanwhile at the Metro Motel, the butt injections continue and the music is like Save Yourself, and I'm like, this might be too loud. Oh no, it was not good. Okay, so hold on one second, let me pause this. And then we see Virgil. I think this is when he's on the stoop with his father, Jamie Overstreet. And he's like, Dad, everybody at the Heights uses the word Negro no matter what their color is. We say it because we're cool with each other. And it's all love between us. And my generation is different. My friends count. You are getting divorced and you're leaving me. And Jamie is like, I will never abandon you. And then the little boy is like, well, I don't fit in the Heights Prep. And Jamie is like, well, I didn't fit in either. You know, at different places I don't fit in. And, you know, it's our double consciousness as black folks. And I was kind of like, I understood what they were trying to do with that. But the writing, it was a little awkward to me. It didn't fit. It didn't work for me. But, you know, I guess they got the point across that, you know, the whole scene was a little off to me. But the father and son, you know, although they have different experiences, they still relate and connect with being black in America. Having a black identity in white America and black hating white America. You know, we see Nola showing Miss Reggie, that's one of the little girls in her class who she thinks is talented. She's showing her like artwork books, like books with different artwork, and they're talking about it, and Reggie is excited. And Nola tries to talk to Reggie about words like biatch and hoe, and, you know, the fact that Reggie had done what Nola was considering a self-portrait of her as Little Kim on the album cover, where Lil' Kim like drops it low and she's squatted open and everything. It didn't look like a self-portrait to me, but, you know, I don't know, you know, but anyway, and the little girl is like, you know, well, being a hoe is a great business. You know, Nicki Minaj and Amber Rose have millions of followers, and, you know, I know they're playing a role, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. So they kind of have a conversation about that, and it kind of parallels Jamie's conversation with his son about using the N-word and about being an N-word, about being a hoe, using the word hoe, you know, kind of, you know, so it was kind of like I thought it was like an interesting moment, particularly when you connect it with the title, you know, All Words Matters, my niggas and my bitches is what it's called. And then we see Mecca in video chatting, and she's with Nola, and she's, you know, telling her baby girl go on to bed, and then Mecca is showing Nola her new butt, and she said, you know, Nola's like, what does your daughter think about it? And she says, well, my baby girl thinks it is pretty, like Nicki Minaj's butt. And then we see Mr. Overstreet has sent Miss Nola Darling a tub of art supplies, and Nola, you know, gets her mail, you know, and there's some bills in there. And then Nola gets a video from Miss Rockalotta Moss. And, you know, that was kind of weird too, because I had already gotten that her usage of the third person was indicative of the fact that she was disassociated from herself because of her abuse. She had talked about her abuse earlier, but they kind of explained that. So I guess that's cool for, you know, those of us who didn't get it. So now we all on the same page. We all caught up. Rockalotta Moss, Miss Rockalotta Moss. Am I saying her name right? I'm Angela. The channel is Be Fabulous You. Thanks again for being here. Welcome, welcome back. Today is the best day ever. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We're working on 200 subscribers. If you're a new subscriber, thank you so much for being a new subscriber. If you're an old subscriber, thank you so much for being an old subscriber. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you. Be you. Be fabulous.